All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining us, and thank you to those who sat through the marathon of a BOE, and sorry for those who are waiting. As always, I'll begin where we stand with violence in the city. Homicides are down 9.6%, and non-fatal shootings are down 2%. We're going to continue. We know that we've seen some violent incidents, and we're going to continue to try to and attempt and work as we continue to try and work with our communities to continue to drive violence down in Baltimore City, especially with some of the incidents that we've seen on the eastern and southeast parts of Baltimore. I want to know that everyone to know that both BPD, MONSE are activating to ensure that they work to address any issues. In fact, I'll be doing a community walk this evening in the area that have seen a little bit of an uptick in activity, bringing all of our agency heads from across city government to engage with that neighborhood and speak to residents. We should note that we are still seeing decreases from last year's historic drop in homicides and non-fatal shootings, and we're going to continue to do everything in our power to maintain that progress. This is particularly along those lines. We know that every year when the weather begins to warm up, we need to take additional steps to make sure and ensure that everyone remains safe. This is particularly true around Baltimore City School spring break and the Easter holiday. Unfortunately, each of us knows that this past few years, and in many incidents in my lifetime, there have been tragic incidents that have resulted in young people being put in harm's way. This year, we're taking all of the lessons learned during last year's youth engagement efforts and applying them early to ensure that all of our young people have a safe spring break. MONSE, the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, City Schools, Rec and Parks, and many of our partners are mobilizing to put ground-level youth engagement teams out in the city, particularly in areas we know often draw young people. City Schools will be talking with students and parents, sending home notices, doing calls, and things like that, both on how to ensure that everyone stays safe during spring break and reminding families of the many programming opportunities that are being offered. Rec and Parks is once again offering spring break camp from Monday 3/25 through Thursday 3/28. We're also partnering with Downtown Locker Room and many of the organizations that helped us out last summer to host the Spring Break Teen Fest on Easter again. The steps that we're taking are focused on ensuring everyone has a safe spring break, and we will certainly be deploying every resource we have to make sure that that's the case. Before we get into questions, I have a few additional announcements that I want to uplift very quickly. First, yesterday we officially announced the annual spring cleanup will be held on Saturday, April 27th. The registration is now live, and you can go on the city website or call 311 to register your cleanup event. And I invite all the members of the media to come out in a alley near me to help me in our city and our neighborhoods clean up in the city. I want to recognize our DPW director, Khalil Zaid, who many of you know, and welcome him back to Baltimore City. As you know, having previously spent nearly 20 years in city government, going from an entry-level job and rising to become the Department of Transportation Director and Deputy Mayor of Operations under our shared former boss, Mayor Rawlins Blake. He and I were co-workers in those days. The city is really lucky to have him back, and DPW under his leadership enters a new era with lots of new staff, having returned to weekly recycling and completed a lot of important outstanding projects like covering the remaining reservoirs, and I'm very excited to see the director lead us in a new future. Thank you very much, sir, and welcome back. And lastly, I want to make one more important announcement before we jump to questions. We all know that artificial intelligence is quickly changing the nature of everything we do, and with numerous discussions both at the state and the national level about the future of technology, city government needs to be proactive. Too often, city government is playing catch up when it comes to these issues, but this administration is trying to change that. So today, I'm issuing an executive order that aims to address the use of generative AI within city government and by city staff. This is purely proactive in nature. We know that AI usage has become more common and accepted, and we need the right tools in place to manage its usage here in Baltimore. The executive order and future guidance that will follow is informed by and closely follows guidance from the White House and from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The executive order does a few things immediately. One, employees will be required to disclose use of generative artificial intelligence for reports, documents, software, or policy memos where outputs produced by a generative AI system are used substantially in the final product. Two, they will be required to keep city-related work separate from personal, especially when using AI-powered websites, apps, or tools that the city does not manage. Three, they will be prohibited from using certain types of generative artificial intelligence technologies dedicated to faking or imitating a person's appearance or voice. Four, the order established an advisory group to be composed of multiple agencies and relevant external stakeholders. A core focus of this advisory group will be to assist in training city employees. They will work to understand the city's use of generative AI and provide recommendations to myself and the rest of the administration on AI matters. The advisory group will ensure usage of generative AI tools is consistent with the requirements and principles outlined in this executive order. A big part of this will be providing guidance to agency heads and staff on potential tools they may come into contact with, particularly with the integration of AI features in existing software, which is becoming increasingly common. This is an issue that is going to continuously evolve and very quickly. Together, these actions will give us a better understanding of these needs of agencies moving forward, the current extent of the use of generative AI tools across the city government, and the very real opportunities that may be presented to leverage new technologies. In short, this executive order isn't just about managing a particular technology. It's about us using active participants and ensuring and being active participants and ensuring that city government is equipped to handle new technologies and that we are approaching these discussions with the seriousness that they deserve. I want to extend my thanks to the CEO and BSIT's team for leading the charge and putting this together. And with that, I will sign it. Good. All right. And with that, we will take questions.
Which question, Tom? So there's been a business that's been set up at the Back River wastewater treatment plant coming up on 12 years. It's a partnership between the business, the city, and the University of Maryland, and it's a carbon capturing technology. That's what they produce. From what I can find, there are only 2 other businesses like it across the world. It's costing taxpayers nothing, and it's essentially turning greenhouse gases into nutritional supplements and medications. Some of the, again, world-leading technology from what I can understand. In February, DPW sent a letter to the business saying that after 12 years that they have not received any benefit and that they're ending the partnership. The question to you is, this company seems to be in line with a lot of your climate initiatives. What do you plan to do?
Well, we'll follow up with you. I see the director aggressively writing notes right now, Tyler, and he will be following up and making sure that we're doing the right thing that aligns with my goals and policies. Thank you.
Go to Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
Following up on some of the escalation policy for Safe Streets, reviewing it, it talks about the escalation policy, moving it up the chain for Monzi staff when there's the possibility that there could be harm or destruction. It doesn't talk about specific or smaller instances where guns are involved or the potential for gang relations. Do you think that the policy is acceptable the way it is, or should it be adjusted to include some of those smaller instances where escalation may be necessary?
I think the policy is more than adequate, and they know that they can escalate these things as necessary when there's guns involved, when there's other things involved, all while maintaining the necessary credibility that those workers need.
Do you have the policy for Monty staff who can then escalate and alert the police department? BPD or law enforcement is never mentioned in the policy itself. So is there a policy for Monty staff?
Monty staff, we can follow up with you on that. They know how to escalate things and who to escalate it to, and we will make sure, as always, that we do that. But again, we will not do anything, Mackenzie, that will invalidate the work, the great work of not just Safe Streets, but any community violence intervention workers.
Go to Ken in the back.
Mr. Mayor, almost 2 weeks ago, the police commissioner was on our air talking about police staffing. He said that they are authorized to have almost 2,600 officers, but they're going to be below 2,000 by the end of next month. Can you confirm that? And can you also speak to, is the police department ready to do what you're saying, what you just presented here for spring break and going forward into the spring and summer months to secure the city?
Yes, they are. I think that, again, when you think about what we've been able to accomplish last year and that we're beating with the amount of police officers that we have violence reduced on top of that, right? Not just homicides and shootings, but carjackings on top of that have been reduced in the city. We know that this issue around police retainment and recruitment is not just a Baltimore City issue. It's literally every single police department in these United States of America, as we know the way that policing is and people who want to do it has changed. This is why I've worked with the commissioner and his predecessor on incentives, and this is why we are continuing to change and go out. This is why Bloomberg is here helping us with recruitment, right? Because we want to make sure that we're putting out the best policies and practices to deal with that, albeit while we also continue the work of really understanding and modernizing public safety. This is why we've done the work of our smart policing program that you've seen us do, where we're taking things that we shouldn't have had sworn officers doing in the first place and putting them into the responsibility of civilians that are working in the police department. This is why we have been lauded for one of the best 911 diversion programs, not just by our consent decree monitors, but other folks across the country, because we are now partnering with folks that now our police officers aren't having to run to those behavioral health calls. Trained folks are doing that, and we want to expand that work, thus allowing the men and women of the Baltimore Police Department to focus on what every single resident wants them focused on, to make sure that they're going out there continuing to make the arrest that they are making around illegal guns and around stolen autos and around murders, right? So just so that you know, this past week alone, they seized 65 guns off the streets of Baltimore. This week last year, there was 40 guns. That's a 63% increase with less police officers because they're more focused. Overall this year, they've seized 532 guns. That is a 10% increase over the 483 at the same time last year. It's about doing all that we can, and we're continuing to work with our partners in the police department and even within their leadership and the folks that represent them to figure out how we can continue to retain and have more police officers. But we also just had an academy class graduate 2 weeks ago. There are many cities around the country that have no academy classes. There are many cities around the country who had to stop doing their recruitment efforts because they're not getting people in. We are in much better shape, and we're going to continue to get better.
WGZ.
Yes. Mayor, you've already alluded to this on some level. Are you able to speak specifically to the ongoing juvenile crime problem relative to the carjackings and the robberies? Lastly, the arrest and the release of these short-term.
Yeah, I'll just give you, Senior, just give you a couple of things on that. First, just point back out again that for us here in the city of Baltimore this year, we have a 5% decrease in carjackings. And just so that you know, juvenile arrests, I'll give you a time period, right? From July to February the 15th, there were 471 juvenile arrests. There were 31 in the month of February alone. right? And we're going to continue to make those arrests. Like I told you guys a few weeks ago, in February, at one point in February, midway, we had already made like 40 arrests for stolen auto. They're going to continue to do their job and making sure and having a deeper partnership with the Department of Juvenile Service and all the other state agencies and the partnerships working. I talked about this last week, having a partnership working with even the court. I've had increasingly good conversations with the folks at Circuit Court and District Court about how we can even improve the relationship there and having them be deeper partners in this work, because I think what your viewers and the residents of Baltimore have to always be reminded of is that the police are only out there to enforce the law. They don't determine whether someone's released. They don't determine how long that person stays. They get as frustrated as anybody, right? I know that I do, that they consistently have to arrest the same people. But my message, the police commissioner's message to them is do what we are responsible for, and that's enforcing the law. And we're going to continue to do that while we work with our partners to deal with the other issues.
Emily Sullivan.
I wonder if you've seen the ads that the Super PAC funding Sheila Dixon have ran that labeled you a nice guy, bad mayor. I wonder what your response to that is, as well as some of the claims that the ad made.
Yeah, I think that we all know that Super PAC is going to be lying throughout this campaign, right? We know that's the message that these folks that are in control of the Super PAC, they want to tell lies and make them true because they have the money to do so. But if you think about, Emily, where we were on December the 8th, 2020, right? We had a 12% unemployment rate in Baltimore. Under my leadership, Baltimore saw its lowest unemployment rate ever last year. We had homicides plus 330. Under my leadership, we saw the largest single-year reduction in homicides the city's ever seen. Under my leadership, we've opened more rec centers than we have in many, many decades. We opened more brand new renovated schools than we have in many, many decades. Our economy is the 8th fastest growing in the country. That is the total exact opposite of moving backwards. That's moving forward at light speed despite governing through a global pandemic that nobody else has had to govern with. And I think that the residents of Baltimore are going to be smarter than to buy into tricks for folks who are funded that said that they are Donald Trump's mouthpiece. They're going to be a lot smarter to believing those folks who just want to tell a story just for the sake of being in control, because that's what this is about. They want to buy Baltimore's democracy so that they can sit in a room in Baltimore County and decide what happens.
Thank you.
Emily Field.
It's a bit of a random one, but opening day is almost upon us. So I just wanted to know your philosophy for distributing the city's share of the tickets. In the past, they've gotten to family, friends, elected officials, local business leaders. Do you think the community is getting enough of a share of those?
So I will say opening day is a particular one, and the comptroller's in the background jumping up and down right now saying, don't forget me for opening day. Yeah, but I think, Emily, if you look at my record for how we give out the city's tickets to sporting events and you compare them to folks that came before me, a lot more average Baltimoreans are getting those tickets, sometimes much to the chagrin of other elected officials and my staff who want me to give them to other people. And as I always say, that my response is normally that those people can afford tickets. They can buy them. Even I sometimes buy tickets myself when we've already given out our tickets to, for example, one of the things that I do every single year is say to our high school and little league teams, baseball and softball, hey, you guys want to use the mayor's box? Giving it to them, because I can then go to the game myself, buy tickets, go see them, and sit where I want to sit anyway, and that's behind home plate because I despise skyboxes. But opening day is a particular one because I have a duty to make sure all of our elected officials get to the game, and then after opening day, we have a different process. The council president has the box, each of the council members has the box, and then we distribute that thing out for many things. It's awfully auction off for a lot of our nonprofits. Schools get it, nonprofits get it, community folks get it. It's a very, very, very important thing for me because I remember as a young man growing up that through the city is how I got to go to Oriole Park at Camden Yards, right? Through the Baltimore Neighborhood Baseball League that we had when I was in elementary school. And now what I've tried to do is now take that a step further and be able to help folks. Oftentimes, families, especially families that have been through a lot, or people who quite frankly needed a little bit of good in their life, are the result of that as well. For example, last year I organized for a young man who I call the mayor of Brooklyn Homes, Mason, to not only take a bunch of his friends and family to the game, but he got to throw out the first pitch. That's the kind of focus that I have for me. And yes, we're going to win.
Let me make sure WMR and that.
And the comptroller is waving at me that I'm over my time. He's my next meeting.
Last question, Tyler.
Why is the city taking drug companies to court over insulin prices?
Well, Tyler, you know I can't talk about things that we're doing in court, but I think the city solicitor and her team have laid out why, and with those prices and what's happening with continuing opioids in the city of Baltimore. I think we're well within our right to do so, and look forward to having the legal process play out. Thank you, everybody.
Can I just have one follow-up on the Monty question? Is
Go
there a
ahead.
policy in place for Monty employees to escalate potential threats to the police?
Well, as I said to you before, Mackenzie, Monty knows the policy of how they're supposed to send things up the chain and who they're supposed to send it to. Thank you.
Days of